Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to SuperCoach Edge, and we are coming out of round 9. And it was another interesting week, and it was the third consecutive week where we've had very, very high scores across the board again. Quite a number of premos popping off, some more potty than others, and worked in my favour, which was good to see. But I did have a very, very big speed hump in my week. I was just cruising down, getting high scores left, right, and centre, and headed into the last game. And it was North Melbourne, Brisbane, and had the captaincy on a set player that we spoke about in our weekly episode of SuperCoach Edge, being Lachie Neale. And he was averaging 117, I think it was, against North Melbourne across the past 15 games that he's played them, and some really high scores in recent games or encounters against them. And as we know, as it turned out, it was a very, very shameful performance. Shameful. It was at the point where, I was thinking about, those of you out there, I don't know if you are fans of Game of Thrones, but you might recall a scene, for those of you out there that have seen it, where Cersei, she is paraded through the streets. She's paraded through the streets naked, tarred and feathered, and there is someone behind her with a bell saying, "Shame, shame." And that is virtually kind of what I want to do to Lachie Neale. This is it right here.
Shame. Shame.
It was just a really, really poor outing from him. And there are ramifications, not just in terms of that. That in itself was pretty poor. But what transpired was even worse. So we'll get into that in a moment. But first and foremost, let's have a look at how we scored. So we ended up scoring at 2,366. Okay on a standard week, but it wasn't a standard week. And as it turned out, I ended up dropping 529 spots to now sit 14,037th overall. And I've been plateauing, I think, dating back to round 3 potentially, where I've been going from 15,000 to 9,000 to 13,000 to 14,000, back and forth. And really, really frustrating, even more so because I am actually upgrading my team. I'm bringing premos into my team. It's pleasing that my team value is going up. So in terms of cash cows accruing profit, going up in value, which is the main thing, that's a positive. But it's just ever so frustrating because we're not seeing those improvements in terms of the results and scores from week to week and rank, I guess, at the end of the day. So let's get into our team and really have a deep dive of how we performed. And as I spoke of from the top, let's just go through this. So Lachie Neale scored an 81. And as it turned out, my secondary option for the captain was in the same game, which was frustrating because I would have loved to have, put the VC on one of these guys and put the captaincy on the other. That player as the backup is Tristan Cherry. And quite ironic, that name, because I thought Neale's score as my captain would have been the cherry on top of a very nice week and, kind of cruising down the street, taking big scores left, right, and center. And here he is, the big speed hump in Lachie Neale, just slowing me right down and virtually ruining my week because Tristan Cherry scored a 186. Now, even without considering the captain side of things, that's a points difference of 105 points. So double that. That's 210 points. So frustrating. So frustrating. It is what it is. There's not much really you can do about it. I think Neale was probably one of the more highly captained players in the round, which kind of saved me to an extent, and probably hence the reason why I didn't drop further in rank. But it was really annoying. I mean, looking across my team, we'll get into it in a moment, but the common theme across the players that scored low were the fact that they were highly owned players like Jack McRae, Caleb Daniel, Riley Bice, Matt Roberts, Hustwaite as well to an extent, Levi Ashcroft, Chera. So they're kind of written off those scores. But when you're missing out on, a really big captaincy score, especially considering a lot of people had the vice captain or captain on Gawn, it virtually means that automatically we're behind the likes of those that captain Gawn and those that captain Tristan Cherry. We did make up a little bit of the ground there in terms of, we'll get into it in a moment, but we had Zorko scoring well, Holmes scoring well. Cherry was good in itself, but, obviously missing the mark there, not having the captain of him. But yeah, it's just one of those weeks that's very, very frustrating where it looked like it was going to be an incredible week and turned out to be an okay week off the back of one score, which involved the captain or the captaincy hat in this case here. And it really was the case of Tristan Sherry turning around to me and being like, Damo, what are you doing? Don't put the captaincy on Lachie Neale. And he just looked me in the eye and he would have said, I'm the captain now. And you are indeed, Tristan. But let's go through our team line by line. And Harry Sheezel scored a 101, tonned up. Not the best score by him, but the fact that he is still scoring a ton, we'll take it if that's his floor, 100%. Thank the heavens. Dane Zorko, 166. We've been waiting for a very, very big ceiling score from him for a long while. Went up 30.3K in price as well. Kind of whittling away a lot of the money that he has lost. Dating back to round 4, because he started the season on fire, 139, 136, and 135. But since then, 94, 82, 70, 104, 95, and then now that 166. So really, really good to see. Hopefully he continues it on against Melbourne. Another bit of an easier game in terms of matchup, you would think. The D's, mind you, are still turning around their season, but let's just hope, really. Let's just hope. Outside of that, we're just happy with the fact that he's put in a big score. So we'll take it. We'll definitely take that. Maxi Holmes, another player as well, who's kind of had a little bit of a lean patch to an extent, and ended up scoring 134, which was good to see. Now, SuperCoach isn't working for me when I'm trying to click into Holmesy. So there's a little bit of a glitch there because it is still trying to load stats because I'm getting in ever so early. I think they've only just opened the scores updates side of things. So we'll continue on. But, good to see the Maxi Holmes back to that ceiling score of 134. Matt Roberts is 72. Bit of a down game from him. He's kind of going to be still one of our late season upgrades. I think he's still scoring okay, and he is, still quite highly owned. He's owned by 34% of the competition, so I think it has actually dropped down. But he's someone that we need to think about and monitor, but I don't think he's a must trade at this stage. So we will take the ups and the downs with Matt Roberts. Now, Zach Reed, 133. This bloke, I remember it would have been about 5 weeks ago, maybe we were thinking about trading him, after 38 against West Coast. Since then, he's scored a 90, 102, and 133. And he's gone up since that round 6. He's actually gone up 120K roughly. So a really, really big turnaround in form by Zachariah. Zach put in H. Reed and gone up 59.4K on the weekend with that 133. Overall, he's made us 262.2K. And gee whiz, has he been the player that we've been waiting for over the past few seasons? Unfortunately, he's been getting injured, but to his credit, he's come back and absolutely smashed it. And it's great to see because he is a very, very, very good player. So good to see that he has some solid form and also a clean bill of health when it comes to injuries. Now has a break-even of -9 and should go up in price again. Faces the Dogs and then Richmond as well. So you could keep him maybe up until their bye, but their bye's in round 16. So you need to hold him for another 6 weeks if that was the case. Looks as though it's really hard to assess because we all thought he kind of bottomed out after round 6 and he's still going strong. But if we were to be sensible, we could probably say he's going to hit his ceiling, his price ceiling, around about 475, I think, at most, which really is good because he's going to be at a price point that is going to be very, very easy to bring in a genuine premo. You'll need to only put maybe 100K on his head and you will get a player of the ilk, say, a Sinclair or a Jordan Clark or someone of that ilk as well. So really, really do like that by good old Zachariah. Rolly Bice scored a 71, looked dire straits really early on. He looked like he was going to score another 49 as he did the previous week against the Giants, but was able to rally and score late in the game. Finished on a 71, but there is a bit of a trend now where he's kind of, the big scores are few and far between those tons that he's had. 124 against North Melbourne and the 101 against Gold Coast. So he's probably going to start to drop in average, I think, now, which he has done progressively over the past 3 weeks. He was averaging 90.2. Now he's averaging at 82.6. And I do think he's going to sort of start to average and sort of not bottom out, but he's going to flatten out a bit in terms of his average and average closer to that 70 to 75 mark, I think, which I think is still good for a D6. But for me, in terms of the price point he's at, which is 375.3K, it's going to be a easy swap to someone of the ilk of a Jordan Clark or or a Jack Sinclair. Those are the two guys that I'm eyeing off this round, and want to sort of separate myself from the rest of the pack because a lot of the competition still have Rolly Bice in their teams. 55% of the competition. So if he has another down game and you're able to bring in a Sinclair or a Clark and they put, an extra 30, 40 points on his head compared to what he outputs, you're already those number of points ahead of the pack. So looking to potentially upgrade him. He's made in total 261.8k. Actually dropped in price for the first time all season to the tune of 500 buckaroonies. But yeah, probably indicates now that he is almost hitting his peak. His break-even now is 102, so that's something to think about. He's only surpassed 102 in those, or actually one game, 124 against North Melbourne, as I mentioned, and the 101, which is close enough that he had in round 7 against the Suns. Matt Carroll didn't play, but however, if you are still an owner of Matt Carroll, do not get rid of him because as a Bags man, I can say with a fair bit of confidence that he is going to return to the lineup off the back of injuries to Lockie Cowan especially. And, there were a couple of guys that were sore as well. I mean, McGovern's not going to play, but like for like, Carroll is going to come in for Cowan, poetically enough, as he did when he first made his debut. So keep him in your sides. He will make some bulk cash. Saad Al Hawley, which was great to see. He actually got a full game for the first time at senior level. Scored a ding-ding dinner for two, 69, which we always love to see. And even more so, considering that he did go up 28.7k, has increased 35.8k in total. And if you don't have him in your teams, I would say get him in. He's got a score of 4 in his rolling average for one more week. And then after that, that will drop out of his rolling average, where he will be facing Richmond and have a negative break even you would expect. So he is going to start catapulting in price. And if you don't own him, I think he's probably a very, very nice option to consider, provided he does keep his spot, which I think he will in Essendon's senior team. Moving on to the midfield, and Nicky Dacos, he was my VC, as he was for many, many people. Very disappointing output from him up against Freo. Don't know what the go was. I know he copped a little bit of it might have been a corky, potentially on the hip, but just was really an off game for him. And considering that Collingwood actually got the chocolates, it was very strange that they won without Dacos having as much influence as we know he can have. His break-even now for those non-owners, pay attention here, because his break-even is 193. So you can definitely wait maybe a week or two, wait for him to drop in price, and he will be very, very juicy. Here I was thinking that I got him at a very nice discount at around about 580 odd or thereabouts from memory. Yeah, 582 I got him in, but he's going to actually drop lower than that, around about 550 you would expect. So look out for him and jump on him if you haven't got him already in a couple of weeks' time. Lockie Neal. Now, I spoke enough about this bloke, but shame. Break-even now over 140. I thought I was getting in a genuine top 8 mid, which I think he still is, but I thought this really wasn't a possibility of him scoring as low as he did without, a genuine tight tag. So very disappointing, very, very disappointing, but we just have to ride the bumps there. Speaking of disappointing, Caleb Sarong, another score in the low 100s. He's now scored, he's almost gone like 101, 102, 103, 104. Let me just have a look across what he scored to date. He scored 2 games of 102. He scored a 103, he scored a 104, a 105, a 108, a 99, an 80, and a 142. Like that, I mean, he's consistent enough because he's kind of still averaging around about that 100. As I've said previously, that's kind of what his floor is. It's good to see that he's got a high floor, but we want to see those high ceiling scores. What is going on? I thought Brayshaw was going to have a bit of an off game. This game against the Pies started slow. The scoring was very similar to, Brayshaw's score was very similar to Sarong. And as it turned out, Brayshaw just pulled away, kicked a goal or two maybe, and just really had the influence. More so than what Sarong has. And it's so frustrating because I've made the wrong call at the start of the season between both of these guys. And I thought Brayshaw was going to get tagged. And I still do not know why. Why is Brayshaw not getting tagged? He's like a Dacos. I know he can run all day, but put time and effort into him. He's shown in the past that he can be susceptible to a tag. What are you doing? Very frustrating. Anyway, hopefully Bedford returns this coming round, and he can actually tag Brayshaw. But you watch him. They'll tag Sarong, even though he's been in the shittest form all season. Just, sorry, I have to get that off my chest because it's so frustrating. Speaking of something that is a little bit more positive, the old Chad. The Chad himself, Chad Warner, one of my trade-ins, went up 28.9K off the back of a score of 93. Looking like a very, very nice pick as well because great value. And now we're kind of undecided about Caleb Daniel being a top 6 forward because we'll get into Daniel in a moment, but he hasn't been scoring all that well. Whereas Warner, I think, is probably someone that you can hang your hat on. Adam Chera, 83. That's kind of around about his floor. Didn't have the best game. Had to actually go back in defense late in the piece due to Cowan going off. Haynes copped a bit of a whack. Obviously lost McGovern in game as well. So his past 3 games, surprisingly, numerology here is looking pretty good because it's 81, 82, 83 his past 3 games. But we are hoping that he can return a bit of a ton score for next week. But his break even now, he's lost 22K, break even at 118. He's still fine. I mean, his scores are by and large better than any rookies that we have, especially on the bench. So we're going to stick with him. He's going to be a very nice bridge to, or an easy bridge, I should say, to a genuine premo. So we will stick with him. Ryan Marrick for West Coast, 126. Now, we think of Seagulls, we think of Luke Ryan, we think of, Bailey Dale at various stages when he's not being a spud. There's guys out there that are genuine Seagulls. But Ryan Marrick, I think he's taken the mantle here. I think he's got the crown and it fits him. It fits him nicely on his noggin to take the crown, sit down in your throne, mate, because you are there just feasting on chips. He actually was on track for around about a score of 80. I think he scored around about 50 or 60 points in the last quarter alone. It was ridiculous. And I have no idea why. Like, I know his disposal efficiency was quite pure, accurate, everything else, whatever you want to call it. But a 126, crazy stuff. I mean, it was probably the small or the narrow margin between both teams probably helped him in the end, but craziness. 126. Went up 38.6K in price point. Now has gone up 249K. And at that price point, very similar to Chera, priced at 472.8K, going to be an easy bridge to a genuine primo. But do we want to get rid of him yet? No. He's got the DPP between forward and mids. He's still scoring quite well. He's got a very, very favourable role, even without McGovern there, and even with McGovern there. It doesn't matter. So really, everything is coming up Millhouse for Ryan Marrick. And yeah, as I said when I first got him, I was getting him for his scoring output, his favourable role more than anything. And second to that was, if he could make a little bit of money, that'd be great. If not, no stress. We just want him to be solid, scoring, 80s, 90s, similar to Chera, whilst we, allow the cash cows to fatten and we don't have those cash cows with their fluctuating scores on field. So he has actually made us, since we brought him in, which was in round 4, he's actually since then made us over 150K, which is crazy. So that's the equivalent of obviously another cash cow in terms of the price appreciation that he has had. So it means that we have one less cash cow that we need to get into our team to make up that money. So 150K, as we always say, that's a big, big tick when it comes to, meeting the mark of price appreciation. Let's move on to Levi Ashcroft. Scored a 77, almost as good as Lockie Neal, really, with half the workload and less frustration. But went up 11K, has gone up 196.3K in total, and has a break-even of 50. So we stick with him. We keep him until he runs out of cashola. Really, just, squeeze every penny, as they say in The Simpsons. So we'll be doing just that. And Henry Husway, that was a little bit of an annoying one, but a lot of people had him on field already. 71% of people that own him played him on field. Now, he still went up 48.4K, but off the score of 27, it could have been so much more. So much more. He was actually subbed out of the game, and that did put a little bit of a dent in his scoring ability, obviously. So goes into the next game with a break-even of -9, so still can make us a bit more cash. However, was concerning that he was tactically subbed. It wasn't due to injury or anything, and it did come off the back of getting caught with the footy a couple of times, and I do think that Sam Mitchell was a little bit frustrated with him, having that lack of awareness. So a little bit worried that he may lose his spot. We just hope that he does keep it, but Connor Nash, does he come back this week, next week? That's kind of the thing that we need to worry about. I think Nash got around about 4 weeks suspension. Yeah, we'll come back after around 10. So 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's 4 weeks. So Hustwaite could potentially stick around on the team for 1 more week just due to fortune. But yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. We don't exactly want another non-playing rookie on the bench doing nothing because we already got Clay Hall doing that, as well as Harry Boyd, the ruckman. But let's move our attention to the bench. And it was frustrating because I did have Xavier Lindsay on field. I switched Hustwaite on field in place of him last minute. And Lindsay ended up scoring a 71 to his credit. And now has a break-even of 36. Went up 24.8K and has increased in total 118K. So that is very good. He's already met the mark now in terms of what we were hoping for, which is the minimum of a 100K price increase. But we hope that that continues from here on out. As I said, Clay Hall didn't play, but he did, again, smash it in the VFL 2 weeks in a row now. Come on, Mini McQualter. Stop being a dumbass and give this bloke a crack. Actually, wouldn't surprise me, given McQualter and the way that he is dropping players left, right, and centre, that he actually drops Gross for getting caught and, I guess, not losing the game because you can't lose it off the back of one play. It was unfortunate, but, West Coast had opportunities throughout the game. But, it was kind of the game-saving tackle from Nash. Not Nash, was it? Brown, sorry, Tom Brown. Not the T. Brown, but Tom Brown from Richmond. And, yeah, that wouldn't surprise me really because that is how petty I think McQualter is. But anyway, we hope that Clay Hall does return and makes us cash because he does have a negative on break-even. So we're going to hold out for that. Hugh Boxall, he was my other trade-in and scored a 38. Negative 46 break-even heading into this coming round. And he does face West Coast. Hopefully he does pop off. A very, very talented player. And, he's kind of managed for minutes. Had 60 minutes, not the show. 71 minutes in his first game on debut, but should get extra opportunity and should increase in value and make us a bit of dollary dues. To the rucks now, Tristan Cherry, I spoke enough about him, but he's an absolute gun, 186. I am sorry, Cherry, for I have sinned. I took the captaincy off you, and I probably will never do that again. Faces Richmond against Nankervis, who concedes bulk points. So scored 144 against them last time, and you're going to get at the very least a VC, Cherry. So apologies, kind sir. TDK 104 thereabouts. Bit of a I guess floor score from him. He's only scored the one score below the ton once, which was in round 8 against Adelaide, where it was a trying game for him and the rest of the Carlton team. So scored an 80, but yeah, if this is his floor score, we'll be happy with it. I mean, we'd love to have Gorn, obviously, but not to be. But we will stick with TDK, of course. Harry Boyd didn't play as my R3, but moving on to the forwards, and we have the old track. Now, back on track and scored a 99. Wasn't quite the ton, but he's had quite a number of scores now in the 90s. He's had a 92, 94, 96, 98, and 99. So very similar in terms of consistency like Sarong. So I'll give him that, but, those are probably his floor scores. The ceiling scores that we saw against Richmond and West Coast, both scores of 129. We do hope that does continue and does return, and he can find that bit of consistency in his game. Baz Lenka, 154. This bloke is, what is he, the number one? No, he's not the number one ranking forward as yet, but he is someone that is going to just be a staple of everyone's forward lines, I think, in terms of being that keeper primo, and scored that 154 just with ease, with absolute ease, and he's flashed a fair bit of his ceiling scores across the journey. So really, really loving the look of Baz Lenka and should be in a majority of teams. In fact, he's in 76% of teams, so I think he's probably one of the most owned players, and rightfully so. Isaac Rankin scored a 97, kicked a couple of really, really incredible goals, absolute pearlers. Thought he was kind of a little bit unlucky with his scoring, but was sort of at a lowish score at the stage of both of those goals anyway. But I did think that he probably deserved a bit more scaling off the back of that. Adelaide won the game, of course, and wasn't to be. But We are happy with Isaac Rankin, and he is the second highest ranking forward at the moment. JHF, good old the horny one, the horn bag, scored a 118, was kind of on track for a bit of a low score, but turned things around late in the piece. I think he kicked a nice goal and got his hands on the footy as well. Kicked one goal too, in fact, 20 disposals, 3 marks, 4 tackles, and 1 free 4. In fact, it was the one game that he hasn't considered a free kick. So tip of the old cap to you, the horn bag, because we'd love to see that a bit more often, mate. Really does increase the scoring ceiling for you. Jack McRae, 79, but, highly owned, as I mentioned at the top of the episode. Doesn't really have much of an impact on you in 74% of teams. I do think he still will be a top 6 forward, but, he's past, 5 games. He's been up and down, and he's due for an up game, actually, in round 10. He scored a 70, 104, 77, 160, and a 79. So he's due for a bit of an up game. Of course, he's playing West Coast, so you would think that will come. Now, Caleb Daniel in F6, he's looking like a little bit of an issue at the moment, but I don't know if we really need to trade him as yet. It is concerning that he does have a break-even now of 121. Faces Richmond, however, so should get opportunity to bounce back, you would think. And yeah, he's only really had this one-off game. He's been very consistent in terms of very similar to Petrarca, where he's had, 4 scores in the 80s, the high 80s. He's had a 92, 16, and 3 scores actually of 116. So the 51 that he scored against Brisbane, I think he did go off for assessment, copped a little bit of a whack, and that really did disrupt his scoring output. So I am keeping the faith with Caleb Daniel. I'm a little bit worried about him being a top 6 forward, but we will keep the faith. And if he does falter at this coming round against Richmond, I do think that it may be time to move on from him. Just given the price point that he's at, it makes it so easy to try and go up to as I mentioned, like a Sinclair or a Jack Clark, or Jordan Clark, or maybe even a Merritt, a Dacos, so on and so forth. So if you have a little bit of money in the bank, that's something that you need to look at very, very closely. But I do think, as I said, he's not a must trade as yet. Moving on to the bench now, and Elijah Hewitt. He had a really, really big off game. Only scored the 33. Now his break-even jumps up to 46. Not, danger signs as yet. He's still averaging a 59.7, so above his break-even. But against Richmond, and he got bulk CBAs as well. I think he actually got around about, I was just having a look before. Yeah, here you go. You got 50% CBAs, which, his previous games he's had 35%, 64, and 60%. So I don't know what the issue was there. He just wasn't able to get his hands on the footy. Running a puff maybe, I don't know. But yeah, we'll have to assess maybe as to how much longer we keep hold of him as a cash cow. He has gone up in price to his credit thus far, 164.2k, and went up 11.6k on the weekend as well. So we do hope that he does increase a little bit more, but if not, we're very, very happy with that. He already has passed the 150k mark, that illustrious mark. Caden Cleary as well, only scored a 35, so not much better. Went up 20.2k on the weekend and has gone up in total 135.2k. So another player that we need to think about potentially moving on. But the big issue here is trying to work out as to who we cash them out for. What other rookies on the horizon, because there aren't too many. Now, rounding things out in the flex, Matt Flynn, opted to keep him. As a little bit of a point of difference, I think, because a lot of people were trading him out. I was hopeful that he would have a very nice game against Nankervis. Very nice matchup. Wasn't to be. He was actually on track. I think he had around about a score of 30-odd, 35 maybe at halftime, and I'm like, this is terrible. But he just came out of nowhere and really was able to score quite well in the last quarter. Very, very similar to Ryan Marriage. So, we will take that. And he actually went up in price a little bit. We'll take it. 4.6k, has increased 127.6k in total, but has a break-even of 97 heading into this round. So we have to consider whether or not we want to keep hold of him. Is it worth it? Or do we potentially cash out and use that cash to then put on the head of another, increased cash cow, say a Riley Bice, to bring in like a Jack Sinclair, which is something that we are considering. I was looking at the strength of schedule when it comes to rucks, because I wanted to see how opposition teams are matching up against Marshall, St Kilda. So, of course, West Coast, they play St Kilda this coming round, in round 10. And St Kilda are actually a green matchup here. So it means that more often than not, opposition ruckmen actually produce scores 5 points above their average. So that is something which we need to factor in. Flynn at the moment is averaging a 93.2, so could maybe push the ton. So I don't know, to kind of be very, very close to his break even. But if he's able to maintain his break even or get very, very close to it, say he scores a 102, he's then going to reset his break even to a 49 and could eke out a little bit more cash. But as to how much cash we can get out of him further, maybe another 40K, 50K. But is that worth it in the grand scheme of things? Maybe not. I think I'd probably be more happy with him scoring highly on field as opposed to keeping him for his cash generation. But I just don't know if that's going to come. After the St Kilda game, he then faces Adelaide, Geelong, and then Cherry in North Melbourne. So, yeah, and TDK the week after that before they head into their bye, West Coast. So, might be the time to cash him out and join the masses that have already punted him. So, that is my team. That is how I fared in the round that was. Let's quickly go through proposed trades. As I mentioned, Rolly Bice, I think he's probably at the point where he's not going to make much more money unless he can reset his cash generation. I don't think he can. I mean, just have a look at Zach Reed. He's priced, 7K more, roughly, than Rolly Bice, and he's been killing it in recent weeks. So Rolly Bice would need a very, very big spike score and almost 2 spike scores back-to-back, or at least within a 3-game sample size because of the 3-game rolling average, to then allow himself to then, make again really bulk cash, which I don't think will happen. So he served us proud. So thank you, good old Bicey. And we will get in either a Jack Sinclair or we will get in where is he? I mentioned him just there, Jordan Clark. So they're very, very similar in terms of their averages. Sinclair's 111.6 and Jordan Clark's 105.6. I think both of these guys will end up being, or at least on the cusp of being, a top 6 scoring defender. So I am confident in getting in either of these guys. Jordan Clark comes roughly at a 10K discount compared to Jack Sinclair. It's much of a muchness. Let's have a look at their break-evens. Jack Sinclair's 106 and Jordan Clark is 103. But we need to look at matchups. Jordan Clark faces the Giants, so a bit of a tougher matchup compared to, Jack Sinclair, who faces West Coast. So let's just have a quick look in terms of matchups for running defenders, designated kickers, wing defenders. He might classify himself as. So St Kilda, West Coast is a bit of a neutral. Designated kickers, which he's probably more of because he's taking kickouts, and West Coast neutral. So I don't know if it's going to be much of a benefit. Not a really good matchup in terms of looking at the strength of schedule there, but we'll take our chances. I think there's probably more chance of Jordan Clark having a bit of a tough outing compared to Jack Sinclair, who came off the back of a very, very nice game against my mob in Carlton. So if we were to trade Rolly Bice to Jack Sinclair, we need to find 131K on the dot. So it will need to come via a maxed out cash cow. As I mentioned, Xavier Lindsay, of these higher price cash cows, he's got money to make still. Clay Hall, not going to allow us enough to go down to even a bottom price player. Hustwaite likewise as well, but he's still got money to make. Ashcroft, money to make and still scoring well on field. And then in terms of Hewitt, he could potentially be one. But I do like the fact that he does have that DPP mid-forward eligibility because flexibility-wise, we can switch him around and switch players around from the midfield as well. And Caden Cleary as well, 259.3K. He's probably someone that I would be looking at moving on. And it would have to come via a bottom price rookie in the sense of maybe an Archer Day Wicks, who's 99.1K. He's a mid-forward as well. We could go for maybe a Cooper Simpson. Well, that, it would allow us enough to go for him. He is a forward only. But, coming off the back of one game, are we confident that he will stick around in the team? Don't know. Let's have a quick look at Cooper Simpson. He played 2 games. So it was looked as though they were both sub or he was injury infected. 57 and 17. So Will he stick around? Don't know. Don't know. A little bit of a worry there. Doesn't look like a must-have at the moment. But there is, of course, a Jed Buse of 172.2k. Now, Jed Buse had, I think it was finger surgery in the off-season, and that delayed his start to this season. And that was the reason why he hasn't played largely across 2025 to date. He is still best 23 in my eyes, defender only. And if we were to go for Jed Buse, he's a bit higher priced, 172.2k. We would need to get rid of someone of the value of 303.2k. So that would have to be via Matt Flynn. There's no one else that is priced around about that point, apart from a Zach Reed, who we're not getting rid of, that we would need to consider doing. So Matt Flynn, I think, is probably an out at this stage, reluctantly. The other option is going for maybe, instead of going for Jed Buse, is going for, as I mentioned, trading out a Caden Cleary and taking a bit of a risk on Archie Wicks, who's 99.1k. That would leave us with 29.2k, and we could easily do that. It allows us to then back in Matt Flynn, but albeit a bit of a risk because of that high break even of 97, but he still could score quite well compared to other rookies on field. So this is something we would need to work out. I'm comfortable in getting rid of Caden Cleary because he's made enough cash across the journey, 135.2k. Probably should eke out a little bit more cash, but I think he's probably someone that is in that vicinity there. So yeah, it's probably for me between a Caden Cleary and a Matt Flynn. Caden Cleary, 55 break even. Should meet it, could meet it, and Hewitt as well with his break even of 46. But for me, for the I guess purpose of this exercise, let's just trade out Matt Flynn. He may stick around. We may change things up and maybe trade out a Cleary instead. And we will, in this case, go for a Jed Buse. Mind you, he scored a 95 and he's got a negative 25 break even. I do not expect him to average anywhere near 95. I was looking at how he was scoring previous to this, and Jed Buse is someone that he's averaging around about, I think it was 50 odd maybe, might be close to 60 at most across his career. Yeah, as you can see here, he only played 5 games for 44.3 in 2024, 15 games in 2023 for a 47.6, and then the full 23 games in 2022 for a 50.4. 2021, he averaged a 55.6 from 25 games, and then a career high 60.9 in 2020 from 20 games. So I think we can probably expect him to average around about 50 to 55 at this stage. Will it really see him make much money? That's the big question. But for me, I think the one thing that I like about this move is at this stage of the season, we're having to take risks on a lot of rookies that aren't guaranteed to play from week to week. And as we've seen with Hustwaite, especially, he was looking good all of a sudden, and then he's been subbed and may actually find his way out of the team. We've seen it with Clay Hall, we've seen it with Gross, and we've seen it with a number of other players as well. Moraes out and in, Cochrane. So Jed Buse, I think the difference here is that he, in my eyes, is a best 23 player. If you're a Cats fan, let us know as well in the comment section down below if you are watching us on YouTube as to what your thoughts are. Does Buse stick around? I do think he does. Likewise as well, if you're tuning in to the audio podcast, hit us up on socials and let us know as well. But, if he can average, let's just have a little bit of a look-see here. If he can average, as I said, a 55 for the remainder of the season, he will only increase about 70k, roughly. And then he'll be kind of a bit of a drip feed for, any cash that he makes from then on. So I don't think he's really much of a cash cow per se. He's probably someone that you could hold season long as a little bit of coverage in defense if you do sustain injuries, suspensions, so on and so forth. So I just, he would need spike scores, I think, like this, like he's had in his first game against the Giants, for him to make any cash. So he is definitely an option. You could go, as I mentioned, for an Archer Wicks, but I'll need to see if he sticks around in Essendon's team, and likewise Cooper Simpson as well. Outside of those 3 guys, there was Fonte maybe, but he is a defender as well. Joe Fonte only scored a 29, didn't have the best game, goes into now his 3rd game. He's got a 77.29, has a negative 11 break even. Yeah. I mean, he's virtually 10K cheaper than Jed Buse, and I don't see him as having rock solid job security. So that's something to really keep in mind with that as well. But again, let's just go back for the purpose of this exercise, because otherwise we will be here umming and ahhing for 2 hours straight. So let's execute this trade now. Riley Bice, Matt Flynn out for Jack Sinclair and Jed Buse. It leaves us with 86.3K. And what it does mean is heading into next week, we will be looking at both Jordan Clark, and we will be looking at as well a Philippou. Now, in order to get both Philippou and Jordan Clark, we may have to use maybe another, like a boost, our last boost. But one thing I am thinking about now, just sort of projecting forward, is maybe trading a Caleb Daniel to a Philippou. That'll give me roughly around about 120K, accounting for maybe Daniel losing a bit of price. And then I can kind of put that on top of another player to get Jordan Clark in my team. As to who that player is, it probably will have to come via Levi Ashcroft. So 120K plus the 86.3K that I've got in the bank, that's 200K. So I could easily put that in the head of Ashcroft. Swing Sinclair midfield for the time being, and then put Jordan Clark in defence. And it would almost complete my defence without Whitfield. Whitfield's probably the last piece of the puzzle for me. I'd have Sheasel, Zorko, Sinclair, Holmes, Roberts, and Jordan Clark, and Zach Reed there as well. Zach Reed is probably the one player that I'm looking to upgrade a little bit down the track once he's maxed out in price. He's scoring like a premo at the moment, so we keep him there as long as we can. But we probably will flip maybe a Zach Reed to a genuine primo midfielder when it comes to that time. But otherwise, that's kind of how things look at the moment. If we do keep with Jed Buse, I think I'm confident in putting Al Hawley on field, so I might switch him into flex. And then in terms of who comes on field in the midfield for Hustwaite, I probably, given that Hustwaite does play the first game, which is very, very handy, I would put provided of course he is named, put the emergency on him. If Clay Hall doesn't play, it'll be a blessing in disguise, because then we can use him as a loop. And if Hustwaite scores well, we keep Clay Hall on field, loop on Hustwaite score. Otherwise, we bring on either Boxall or Xavier Lindsay. Boxall plays West Coast in the last game. Could be a nice matchup. Xavier Lindsay plays Brisbane. But we might probably put Lindsay on, and that's how we'll sort of structure things up. In terms of captains and vice captains, of course, as we always say, we will go through them in I Am the Captain Now in our weekly SuperCoach Edge podcast. So look out for that as always. We'll drop around about Wednesday or Thursday. So always keep that in your calendar from week to week. And easy way to do so to keep abreast of it is on YouTube. Hit the like, hit the sub, and the notification bell as well, because you will be notified when our episodes drop, so you will not miss them. Likewise as well, if you are tuning into the audio podcast, just follow the podcast, subscribe, all that sort of stuff through Spotify, Apple Pods, and you will get an update when our audio podcast of our episode does drop. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. For VC, we'll probably go for Cherry maybe against Nank. And then do we dare go back with Neil against Melbourne? I don't know if we're that confident. Outside of that, there are a few guys that you probably could go through, and we will speak about in the episode proper. But of those guys that I do have, probably, Sheasel's the other one if I'm not going for Cherry. But Cherry, my sweet cherry pie, is probably someone that I am keen on. And I will probably have to roll the dice. I could probably go the captain on Cherry. I'm that confident. So maybe we put the VC on another flyer. We could go for maybe a Baslenka. Nicky Dacostas if a bounce back at the MCG against the Crows, maybe. Dane Zorko off the back of his big score. We could maybe even put the captaincy on him and put the VC on Cherry. So we'll work things out, but for the time being, we might put there's Warner as well. He scores quite well against Carlton, I think, from memory. 172 he scored previously last year, and a 112 and a 51 in his past 3. So, yeah, we might just keep the VC on Cherry. We might put the captaincy on, or we might put the VC on Dacos and the captaincy on Cherry. How about that? But things, of course, will change, no doubt. And El Houli is our flex player. So that's kind of the way that things shape up heading into round 10 for myself. I could always activate a boost, bring in, Philippou off the back of Daniel and be done with it. But again, just Daniel faces Richmond. I don't know if he's a must trade as yet. The jury's out a little bit, but we are still looking at potentially Philippou in for Daniel. But that is it, ladies and gents. We might just quickly go through whilst we're here, because through popular request on our Discord, which of course, if you haven't joined yet, feel free to do so. It is a great community where other people are helping others. Any questions about trades, captains, just general banter about SuperCoach, that's the place to be. Check it out on our Discord. We will put the link in our comment section here on YouTube, but we also are putting it up on our Twitter as well, so look out for that. It's virtually like a Twitter, like a forum like Big Footy, so go and check it out. But we have had requests through there to do a bit of a wrap-up of our cash leagues. So for those of you in it, this is the quick wrap-up, I should say. Not rack up. We're not going to rack up anything. Hopefully they're wins, but no racks here in sight. Even though I am recording this and it is getting ever so close to midnight. So I could talk about racks, but I won't. So Slims Garrison, one of our longtime supporters, an absolute gun of a human being and a gun super coacher. He has taken the top mantle, 7 wins and 1 loss, and he's ranked 53rd overall. Let's get behind this big fella because he is an absolute gun, killing it. Still, dream of Heaney, who is, I think, another supporter of ours. It is good old Cheesy. I don't really like Cheese. He is in 2nd spot. Unique Individuals, Andrew in 3rd spot. 6 wins, 2 losses. Export Daniel, he's in 4th. Sloppy Joe Lane Pipe, of course, that is Jonas Goat, for those of you who are familiar with him on our live streams. And he's across the board, across all of the different content creators, their channels. You'll see him. Recognisable name. He is in 5th spot. Higher Q Mitchell in 6th. Moves Like Jagger in 7th. And Tankers, the father-in-law to both myself and Liam, he is in 8th spot, so doing very, very nicely there. Moving across to our second cash league here, and we have Zora Killer in 1st place, and he has taken the top mantle. He is 7 wins, 1 loss. So tip of the old cap to you, Zora Killer, and you're ranked 187th overall. So we have quite a number of really quality super coaches in both of these SuperCoach Edge cash leagues. Small victories, Matthew in 2nd spot there. Dinner for 2, Adam, our number 1 ticket holder, undisputed, 100%. He is in 3rd spot. Nards FC in 4th. Unique Individuals, Andrew, in this league as well in 5th. Black Flag in 6th. Sausage Roll in 7th. And Tyrell's Hacks, Nikki in 8th spot. So that is the way things look at the moment across both of those cash leagues. So there you go for those people asking for a little bit of a wrap up. Well done to those of you who are smashing it in those cash leagues, where, of course, we have 1K as the top prize to the winner of that, or both of those cash leagues each. So best of luck to everyone. As we go forth from here on out, we are approaching the midway point of the season. So it has come about very, very quickly. So with that, ladies and gents, we will end things there. Thank you as always for tuning in. Really do appreciate your company. Hopefully you had a cracking round coming out of round 9, and we make the moves that really push us towards the higher echelon in rank next round and here on out. So as always, if you have any comments and questions, hit us up on Twitter. And we are always happy to help in the comment section down below if you are watching us on YouTube. Don't forget that our SuperCoach Edge episode will drop on, say, Wednesday or Thursday at the latest. So look out for that. But with that, ladies and gents, thanks as always for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.